Companies are the core part of any country's economy. In Demetheria, we have three types of companies: mining companies, production companies, and banking companies. Mining companies extract raw resources from the map. Production companies buy those resources and turn them into useful items. And banking companies manage other people's money. To get started with a company of your own, you need at least $500 to create it. Once you have obtained those $100, you can simply use this command to create your company. When you're creating your company, you will also need to select the company type. And our production company has been created. We can check the company info with /company info. This is our company information screen. Currently, our company just started. Half of the money we invested went to the government, while the other half went into the company's value. The value is very important as it represents the amount of money that the company has. Everything that the company buys or spends money on, like material items, raw resources, or even paying out worker salaries, comes from this value. Now, you will notice that the stock info is currently undefined. This is because our company is not yet open to the country's stock market. Let's produce our first item. First of all, you want to conclude what category of items you want to produce. I recommend watching this tutorial, which explains more about item categories. One of the ways we can conclude this is by using the item list command. When you use this command, you will get the list of items in your country. In this country, we only have about 7 items that have stocks available to be bought. We can scroll through these items and see which ones we lack. So currently we have a bunch of consumer goods, a bunch of research, and some material. But we don't have any media items, so let's change that. Let's create our first media item. When you are creating your item, you will need to name the effective price of the item. This effective price isn't necessarily the price you will be selling the item at. It is just the price which determines how effective this item is in, let's say, citizens consuming it, or the amount of resources you need to invest in order to create this item. So let's make this one around $200. Once we have created the item, we also need to categorize it. In this case, just type in media. Now, if we do /company info again, we will see that we now have one item listed. This item currently costs 205 instead of 200 because of the inflation in our country. But we can also lower the price of this item. Once we lower the price of this item, you'll see that it now costs $102. Even though we set it at $100, the currency inflation still makes it a bit more expensive. You will notice that we currently do not have any stock of this item. So, in order to make this item, we first of all need to buy resources. To produce this item, we will need 10 wood. So let's buy it. But wait, we don't yet know which companies are selling this resource. So first of all, let's use the command /resource list. Great. Now we have a direct comparison of which company sells which resource and for which price. We see that currently the only company selling wood is MH Corp, so we don't really have any other choice. Now to produce our newspaper, we'll simply type /work newspaper. You now have your first stock of newspaper. Another very important type of company is mining. Mining is the backbone of the whole industry. Without any mining, no companies would have the raw resources required for producing items. Mining companies need to build mining structures on certain provinces in order to extract resources out of them. Let's check our country map. These are the provinces we have available. Let's check which resources are on the province of A12. The province of A12 has a lot of food and wood, but very little oil and gold. Now let's see which companies are already mining A12. So currently 3 companies have a farm on A12 and 1 company has a lumber mill, which means 3 companies are already collecting food, whereas only 1 company is collecting wood. So let's change this. In order to be a mining company, you need to select the mining company type whilst you are creating your company. Now, in order to build this lumber mill, you will first need to scavenge your item market, and you will need to look for material items. As we can see, we have 3 good material items selling for only $820, while their effectiveness is $1,250. We can buy 2 of these items and we will have for a lumber mill. Be very careful and don't use the /buy item command. You need to use /company buy because you are buying this item for your company. Now that you have bought this item for your company, you will need to establish the mining structure on the province. You can do that with /company build. Once you have built the mining structure, you can start off with mining. Simply use the /mine, province A12, resource wood, and each mine will grant your company a certain amount of that resource. The last thing you need to do as a mining company is set your resources costs. You can do that by /company resource cost. Once you have set your resource cost, any any other company will be able to buy your company's resource. And last but not least, it is very important to set the base salary of your company. The base salary is paid out in the daily cycle, which you can learn more about in tutorial number 3. You can simply set the base salary using /company salary base, set the salary you want to pay out to your workers daily. You can also modify a specific worker salary with /company salary citizen, and that is all the basics of company management.